Good afternoon, this is Neil Getz from the group. A live stream from Netherton of Logie. It's around about 6 degrees, it's a nice bright day in March up in Aberdeenshire, and just a quick walk through Netherton of Logie, which even still looks quite nice on what would normally be a winter's day. And it is a recommended site to come and visit. It's lovely, it's well kept, it's relatively easy access, and it's lovely in the summer. So, what's about this circle then? The general orientation of the circle, if I'm standing sort of generally in the middle of it now, with the wind turbine at the back, the recumbent setting is facing essentially south. If I turn around, you can see beyond the trees and just beyond the circle, sort of north kind of facing us, and it's surrounded by, the circle is surrounded by fields. It's the end of a farmyard, and the farm's on a small B road, which is just off the main road. So relatively accessible, easy to get to, easy to walk to, and a lovely circle. So if we start kind of walking around then, Great Crowns of Stone have mentioned that the circle itself has clearly had some kind of restoration work done, mostly around the circle stones, and there is a fairly significant, we'll see in a wee while, roundlet. The circle has a retaining wall round about it as the fields have been ploughed and used throughout the centuries. The level has been redistributed and inevitably lowered, and left the circle kind of standing up, which is always a wee bit odd thing to kind of see. But essentially what it means is when the stone was erected, 4.5, 5,000 years ago, this would have been the true level. The craters would have flattened the area, would have created the circle, would have maintained it and looked after it, and then over the centuries and millennia, as the fields were being used, and especially in the last 300 years, the industrialisation of farming would have meant that the fields would have been slowly but surely lowering as the field would be distributed with ploughing. So we have a little bit of a kind of combination of stones round about, but we'll just do the usual. We'll maybe try and get into the outside of the circle just for a quick shot, just to have a look at some pheasants. So have a look at. So as per usual, we start with the recumbent setting with its numbering. So west flanker number 1, recumbent number 2, east flanker number 3, and then we'll work our way around the stones. So generally, as per most recumbent settings, there tends to be one of the flankers is a bit of a block, and one of the flankers is a bit kind of pointy, and sometimes it's either one round about. But number 1 stone is a bit of a block and very nicely dressed, very very flat edges, well dressed with 90-degree angles, and it is a good block. It's a good size block. I'll just get back round to the other side. I think it's just about my kind of top of my head height, so we're probably talking about 165 centimetres or so. It's a good arm's width either way. I think fairly nice fine red granite, and it's difficult to tell if this is the recumbent setting's been reconstructed. I'm guessing not. I suspect it's the rest of the circle stones that have been, because these are monster stones. That's a monster of a stone. Coming on to the recumbent itself, rounded, rounded, not as square as like old Keegan such. But again, this is a significant stone. We're probably talking about just under maybe 3 meters long. And if I stand right next to it, it's kind of coming up to my chest. And we'll try and get a side-on shot. It's probably a good 1.5 meters wide. Some blocks at the back there. So it's a nice size of recumbent stone. It's not flattened at the top. It's rounded all the way across, but it is a substantial. I know I like that word. Substantial stone, the recumbent. Flanker 2 or stone number 3 again. So this is kind of a bit pointy compared to number 1, which is more of a square block. Though it is, again, well dressed. There's good right angles on it, flat faces, red granite. Hard to tell whether a recumbent might be red granite. I think it's always difficult to tell with the amount of weathering that these kind of stones have had, but it looks like it maybe kind of is. There's just indications in there. But number 3 stone, definitely. I think maybe they all are red granite, to be honest. Depends on the quarry they came from. But you can see it's definitely a bit more pointy. This is a kind of shot from the angled side of it. Very wide at the bottom in comparison to stone 1. A bit thinner for sure, but definitely a bit more pointy. Now, I'm going to ignore, well, great crowns of stone, ignore these 2 stones and ignore these line of stones, because the belief is that they are such a straight line that they have been essentially part of a reconstruction at some point. As you can tell, they're just in a nice straight line here. However, there's maybe a little bit of a possibility of following some kind of curve or circle roundabout here, but the great crowns of stone don't name these as circle stones. In fact, if we go from 1, 2, 3, the next stone that they talk about is number 4, which is over here, ducking under the branches, which is about chest height, pointy, well dressed, flat sides, still standing, obviously, and then, which is always a bit of a worry, very close to a tree. I think, I suspect, as a lot of people maybe do, that a lot of our stone circles and the stones have fallen due to the growth of a tree nearby, and it, you know, taken with the roots coming up, or it falling over, it takes the stone with it. So stone number 4. Stone number 5, a bit more of a squat stone, coming up to about just above waist height on me, but right angles, flat faces, relatively well dressed, and again very close to a tree, so depends on how that's going to go in the future. But the great crowns of stone have said that there's a couple of contributors that have suggested that the stone has been reconstructed at least once. While we're out of this side and looking a bit north, just show that the wall, retaining wall of the circle, is quite substantial. It comes up to about maybe kind of waist, lower chest height from the rest of the field. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 6 fallen. Again, probably a relatively small stone. If it has fallen, come out of socket, a good quarter, a third of the stone would have been in its socket. I believe we've even got some midges here. But red granite again, just below the moss. I keep losing count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 looks a bit precarious. Maybe just a little bit of an angle. Quite a chunk of a stone though. Quite wide at the bottom. Looks like it's maybe had some kind of damage to me. Bit of maybe a start of a drill hole there where they've maybe tried to reduce it somehow. It just looks like it's had some kind of smack with something and leaning over quite a bit. But again, all evidence would suggest it's well dressed, flat surfaces, and with number 6 and 7, if the 6 was erect, then it would be, it would be the smallest stones in the circle, and that again would go by the kind of the usual kind of gradients where we have the flankers being the tall stones, and then as the circle comes round, they gradually get less and less in height to the back, and then go all the way back up to larger stones. So number 8, there's a few stones missing clearly in the circle, and number 8 being quite a sizable stone, coming up to about my head height again. Fairly flat edge there. Might have been, there's a corner here maybe been taken off, but again could have easily been well dressed, right angles. Probably quite a bit of damage done to this one. There is this stone specifically is mentioned about being re-erected in Great Crowns of Stone. But again, it's a big monster of a stone when you're up close to it. And coming back to the recumbent, you can kind of see how big number 1 is. It is a size. So that was just a quick walk through the Netherton of Logie. Again, a very pleasant site to visit, really accessible. Oh, I forgot to mention the stone wall that's round the circle. That was noted round about the 1900 mark, 1905 kind of mark, I think. The Great Crowns of Stone. But yeah, the farm I think keeps the circle as well as it can. It encourages visitors. There's a farm shop that's open certain days, maybe some self-service some days, but they actively encourage people to come and visit the stone circle. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I'll catch you later.